Right, I'm thinking about putting the 123 USB tune distributor into my TR5 150 engine. I put a different cam in and got an extractor system, so I'm looking at actually creating a curve that I can adjust to the characteristics of the engine. I've downloaded before buying it the 123 software, which you can do quite easily. And as you can see here, it is here. You have a number of gauges. The bottom left-hand side is your rev counter. The top left hand side is the ignition temperature. The middle one is the advance in degrees, which gives a readout as well. The top right hand one is a vacuum one. Now the distributor doesn't have vacuum on it, but I'm hoping to connect that one to my metering unit, the pipe that goes from the manifold to the metering unit, so it can give me a live indication of where the vacuum is. And the bottom right hand one is your coil, ignition coil current in amps. Mine's about 3.4, I think it's supposed to be, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Now you have two settings at the top. You've got the dashboard setting we're on, the dashboard we're on now, and then you've got settings. Over on the top on the left hand side, you've got a file which has got import export on. You've got a view which can be in metric units, imperial. You've got tuning, so you can enable tuning in real life by the sound of it, by pressing the T on the keyboard when you've got a passenger sat next to you who knows how to read it, because you can't do it yourself. And then you use the A and the R to advance and retard. You've got a enable stopwatch, so you can actually enable a rev band, say between 2 and 3,500. And if you drive through that, it will register the time that it takes, and you can adjust the curve to see whether you can beat the time or not. So it gives you the opportunity of actually tuning the curve to your characteristics of your engine on the road. Then you've got the help file. Now what we'll do now is that's the dashboard. It's not running at the moment, but we'll go to the settings side. So if I click on the settings side, we've now got the settings side. Now there is a curve already there in the settings that I've already got in it, and you can see what the curve is. It starts off, if you look on this side here, it starts off, well, I've set a rev limiter of 6,000 RPM. You can set the limit that you want it to run. You've got the opportunity of two curves, your one sync curve or your second curve, and when you've actually decided on the curve and you plug into your distributor, you can then store it in your distributor. So every time you make adjustments, you have to store it, that particular one, into your into the distributor, the 123 distributor. Now if we go back over and look at how I've got it, you can see the RPM and the degrees that it's got. I'm just playing with it. But if we go back up now to the file, and you've got import file, you get with it a number of examples. Now if we go to example 5, what actually happens, there's the number 5 example, which is for a Porsche 4-cylinder engine from an original distributor. And you can see how the curves are. You've got a flat line curve on the right hand side, which is the vacuum, and then you've got a curve for the actual mechanical advance on the left hand side. Just to show you, if you have got vacuum, what happens, you've got the ability to do your vacuum side as well. So that's all there. So what you do is you actually pick you pick a curve that you want to play with and see what it is, and then you actually import that into, and it builds the curve. Now you can change this curve anyhow you want to suit the engine and play around with it. You'll have to have a starting point by the look of it, and then move forward from that starting point. Like I've got 2.2 at 500 RPM, sorry, 0 at 500 RPM, and 2.2 at 1200, 7 at 2000, and 30 at 4.5, taking me right the way to 30 at 8000 RPM, but I've set my limiter to 6000. So you could set that at 5.5 if you want to, 6.5, all depending on what camshaft you've got in. If you want to change it, all you need to do is, if I wanted to change it 7 degrees, Now I'll do a silly figure here so you can see how it changes. Now if I put in there actually 12 degrees, which you see I've just typed in, and then click on another one, you'll see that how it changes up and down. The actual the figure changes up and down. If you wanted to change the maximum advance at 4.5 to say 27 degrees, you've got that ability to do that, and when you click into another one, that brings it down. Now what I've got to do now is, I think I'm going to buy it and then try it in the car and see how I get on. I trust this has been helpful to anybody who's thinking about doing it. First of all, underneath the bonnet, quite a few modifications done. You'll see that I've put on an electric water pump which goes through a ECU to control the temperature of the actual car when it's running. The 123 went on later after the engine was rebuilt with a rally cam, which is a Kent TH6. So now I'm looking at tuning it to the actual characteristics of the engine. Here you see the 123 distributor fitted, the appropriate wires, a Lucas Gold coil, and you can see that the USB connection is fitted, which I've got running inside the car to plug into the computer for on the road to sort out the actual characteristics of the engine and try and suit the advance curve to my engine. Currently I've got two curves in here. This is the number 1 curve, the green light is lit up, and on the right hand side you can see the rev limiter at 6,000 and the different points of advance, 1200 RPM, 2000 and 4.5. And you can see the curve has the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points in it. Now if I change to the other curve that I've been experimenting with by clicking on there, it will build the other curve, and because I've got some pinking, I've been trying different experiments, and you can see that I've flattened off at 5 degrees between the 500 RPM and the 1200 RPM to experiment with that. That's the two curves I'm experimenting. The one I'm actually on at the moment is number 1 curve, and I will experiment with that in the dashboard when running, but obviously I've got to have somebody next to me because it's unsafe to look at the screen and drive at the same time. Right, the engine's now running, we're connected up. You can see that the actual illumination is showing. You won't be able to see both things, but if we come down now to see the dashboard on the computer, you can see that what we've got there is a number of dials. The bottom left hand one is RPM, which is running at 800. The advance at this present moment is 5 degrees. And the temperature of the ignition system is just over 70, 80, 90. We have got the vacuum on 10, the top right, so I can see what's happening on the engine, and then we've got the ignition current showing 3.6 at the moment, which is satisfactory. Right, the engine's now running, we're connected up. You can see that the actual illumination is showing. You won't be able to see both things, but if we come down now to see the dashboard on the computer, you can see that what we've got there is a number of dials. The bottom left hand one is RPM, which is running at 800. The advance at this present moment is 5 degrees. And the temperature of the ignition system is just over 70, 80, 90. We have got the vacuum on 10, the top right, so I can see what's happening on the engine, and then we've got the ignition current showing 3.6 at the moment, which is satisfactory. This is my Lumination air fuel mixture, which is through a wideband lumbar sensor in the exhaust system. As you can see, the engine's running at the moment, and you can see the mixture changing. You will have noticed on the under bonnet shot that my distributor doesn't have vacuum advance, but I've used the vacuum pipe on the 123 distributor, set a zero line and connected it into my Lucas PI pump system metering unit, so therefore I can actually register the vacuum on the dashboard, which you will see later. You can see how it changes when I change the throttle settings there. The car at the moment is cold, so operator and myself to optimize the power of the engine. As you can see, it has a rev limiter on the right hand side top of 6,000 RPM. Then you have 10 points. The first point being 500 RPM at 5 degrees, 600 RPM at 14 degrees, 800 RPM at 12.8 degrees, 1200 RPM at 10 degrees, 1500 RPM at 18 degrees, 2000 RPM 22 degrees, 2800 RPM 26 degrees, 3200 RPM 28 degrees, 4500 through to the rev limiter of 6000, but shows up as 8000 on the chart at 30 degrees. Now this was the one we ran up to check the BHP and torque on the vehicle. With his assistance and his knowledge and my understanding of the metering unit, we hope to achieve the best performance of for the engine by optimizing the curve to suit my particular engine characteristics. When I say engine characteristics, that means inlet setup, exhaust, the way the head has been done, the size of the valves, the camshaft, and all of the individual characteristics there are. Hopefully this curve, because it's the 1, 2, 3 and you don't get any dwell variation, you have basically the 6 cylinders firing exactly in the right position. If you take a 360 degree protractor and divide it by 6, it fires exactly that point through there, so it makes the engine very, very smooth. So we'll test it and see what happens. Hopefully you can see the power curve on screen. The scan doesn't look particularly good, but what we did manage to do was to achieve a engine output of 177 bhp, and the torque was 167 pounds-feet. The torque was achieved at 5,460 RPM, and the BHP was achieved at 5,550 RPM. Now we need to run it on the road to see if there's any anomalies, because after this run we ran it up again. This is where we found that it had a problem over 2,400 RPM with respect of it going to too rich a mixture. We believe that possibly there's 3 or 4 horsepower, extra horsepower to be able to get out of it. But that's not the main thing, because you don't want to power run too many times, because it puts a lot of strain on your transmission when you are stationary. But I will road test it and we will see how we go, and let you know exactly where we're going from. I'm going to have to return to do the mixture at the top end to the rolling road, so I will make another appointment and sort that accordingly. I trust this is helpful. Obviously, rolling road figures can change all depending on the actual time of year. If the air is colder, you get a better combustion than if it's warmer. So towards the winter time might give a better figure than the summertime. Um, we'll take it from there and see what happens. Right, I've returned from the rolling road and we've got a couple of problems. We set the curve up and did all the run-ups, but we were running rich from 2400 RPM up, which requires some adjustments on the metering unit. Unfortunately, the one I wanted to get to, you can't get to very easily, so I'm going to make up a modification. The other thing that actually happened is when I come away from the rolling road, I seem to have a flat spot on the vehicle, which I'm going to have to investigate more, and I'll probably come back to that at a later stage. Now, this is the metering unit, a spare metering unit I have. Now, we have a number of adjustments on here. The adjustments on the top which are showing are these three here, which can be undone. The middle one is the one that adjusts the lighter of the two springs. The bottom one is the one that adjusts the stronger spring and overall movement with the overall strength of the spring up and down. The center one is the overrun adjustment, and then you have, if we look now inside the unit, you can see the datum track in here. Now, when you actually pull the choke on the vehicle, it moves that datum track out like so to give extra fuel. When the vacuum goes in through the top here, it then moves this roller up and down this datum track slope here. I'll just move it slightly, you can see it moving up and down. That goes on the diaphragm. Now, the adjustment I've got to make is to do with this one at the rear here, which is the maximum fuel stop, which if you screw in, it will make it richer because it's the same as pulling the choke on and off, and out will make it leaner because it reduces the distance between the roller and the datum track. Now, that screw at the bottom is the one that I'm going to have a look at and try and sort. Now, here is the here's the screw here, which goes into the bottom, as you can see. It has a lock nut on it and has a flat end which goes in onto the back of the arm, this arm in here, and it has a flat on the end. Now, what I've done is I've removed that one, or what my intentions are is to remove the one on the vehicle, which I can get out by getting my hands underneath as a 2BA with a little 8mm nut on it, and I can flatten a bit of tube and unscrew that one. Then my intentions are is to cut the end of it off and to drill in through the end here, and then have a piece of speeder cable and solder into there so that I can bring the speeder cable up the metering unit and up the side so I can adjust it on the car when it's actually running or in between run-ups. And I will make an attachment at the other end to actually lock it and be able to do that. Now, that's the intentions, and then I can return to the rolling road once I've done that modification and get the mixture correct, because, as I say, up into 2400 it's perfectly okay, but after that we have a problem, and it needs to be adjusted, and it will probably need to be adjusted on the adjustment here and also the adjustment on the maximum fuel stop underneath, which you can see. I trust you understand that. or hopefully, and we'll see what we can do from there on. Right, I've done the modification now. I've unscrewed it. I'll try and show you exactly what it is. Now, if you look down through, you can see the 123 distributor, and this is the USB connection. Now, what I've used is actually I had a second-hand throttle adjusting body there, nut to do it. And what I've actually done is I've actually got that one, and you can probably see there's the speedo cable, which goes down underneath the metering unit, right down underneath the metering unit, onto the actual screw. And I've put a little bracket on and some lock nuts to be able to adjust the actual full throttle, full fuel, to either unscrew it to make it leaner or screw it in to make it richer. And then obviously take the top off of the metering unit to be able to sort out those adjustments as well. I trust you can see that okay. Sorry about the quality of it, but you can see the bracket on the side, you can see the actual adjuster, and you can also see the cable. The USB cable I've made to go inside the car so I can plug it in when I've got somebody in the car with me to sort it. So hopefully that will all be okay now. Well, I've added a few video clips that I've got over a period of time. I'll run through my conclusions and understanding of how the system works. Very impressed with the 123 USB. Only one reservation really, and that was the flat spot I spoke about earlier. I overcame that by taking the 16-degree advance point out of the curve. But to be fair with them, the 123 manufacturers, they do say that it's not necessary to use the 10 points, 5 points would be acceptable. So I don't have a problem with that. The mixture, sorted that one out by adjusting the full fuel throttle screw, and had to make several adjustments on the lighter spring and the heavier spring. So it runs absolutely wonderful. Got a figure of 181 bhp in the end out of it. So very, very impressed. I hope that this short DVD I've done is helpful to anybody else that may see it. But yes, the other thing that you must take into consideration is obviously the cost of it. But if you deduct the cost of what it would cost you to have your manual distributor overhauled, and it would never give the same type of performance that this electronic advance does. It's reasonable, very reasonable, but you need to take into consideration that I am now going to have to send away my rev counter because it's cable operated, and have it upgraded to an electronic one, which I believe JDO does. I've seen it on the forum many times. So I trust it's been helpful, and look forward to some good TR motoring in 2012, which has just started. Not a date on the DVD, obviously it was just started, and enjoying some more things. There's a couple of shots in the video of Harrogate last year on the hill climb, and also of the powder room show in Exeter, where the TR Register Stan came down and set up with the Devon group. So all the best. Keep on motoring.